You don't just want to be a speaker, you want to be a TED speaker. Hello, my name is Stephanie Toma, and I'm a public speaking coach. My company is called Connect with Confidence, and I have been behind the scenes at TEDx for 7 years. And I'm going to share the 5 things that you need to know if you are considering becoming a TEDx speaker yourself. The first of those things is to be aware that there are 3 tiers of TEDx's, and there's a difference between TED and TEDx. Let's start with the difference between TED and TEDx. TED is the creme de la creme of TED Talks. It takes place at the headquarters in New York City, and I had the pleasure of seeing a friend to give their TED Talk. And it's actually not that big of a room. And typically people are nominated. You can nominate yourself, but yeah, it's really the highest accolade where it's encouraged that you memorize every single word of your speech before you get on the stage. But I did notice that there were a couple of people that did stop in the middle of it and then pick up where they left off. And I imagined that there would be that edit where with TEDx talks, those are independently organized and those are not edited. So what you see is what you get when you're up on that stage. However, it's a little less rigorous when it comes to memorizing every single word. There's a little more wiggle room depending on the tier. That brings us to our second point to be aware of. Tier one would be, if we're thinking of the US, a city like San Francisco, where I was behind the scenes, as well as a city like New York, of course, or those cities that people know it by name. They are often destinations that are known worldwide, whereas tier two could be a little more run-of-the-mill, middle grade cities in terms of their influence in the world at large. And then tier three would be those cities, maybe small towns that you've never even heard of. And pro tip, it's actually a little easier typically to get into a tier three versus a tier one. The second is your talk more technical or inspirational? If it's more technical and cutting edge, remember, TED is all about ideas worth spreading. So when it comes to your inspirational talks, you might want to cut the fluff or go for a tier three city and have a slightly better chance than if you were to go for the TED stage or a tier one or even sometimes tier two. You want to be providing real, tangible science, experience, value in addition to what could simply inspire someone to take a given action. This is about sharing of thought leadership. That brings us to our fourth point, which is around if TED is looking for professional speakers or thought leaders. Okay, if you market yourself as a professional speaker, that could actually work against you because this is not about showcasing the best public speakers. It's about people that have big ideas and have made groundbreaking discoveries. So, even if you're not a perfectly polished speaker, the idea is that you can learn that skill, you can hone that. And if you watch enough TEDx videos, you'll notice that some people are more or less well-spoken than others. And that's because it is ideas first. 5 is to plan at least 6 months out if you want to give a talk. It's rare that these events are like, hey, last minute call for speakers. This is a life goal that a lot of people, speakers or otherwise, have. And it's a good idea to be on the lookout as much as a year in advance. Typically, different chapters for TEDx events will happen once every year. TED does have rolling applications where you could be nominated at any point and it will go into the queue. But when it comes to the TEDx application process, which is typically more accessible to your average person, then you want to go ahead and be sure to look at different chapters. It could be if you went to a certain college, your alma mater. It could be if you live in a certain city right now, or if there's a place that you've been curious to travel to, go ahead and throw your name in the ring and be aware that different cities, even at different times, can have different themes. It could be, reimagine. It could be the future. It could be food. So whatever it is, take a look at it and make sure that what you're putting out there is actually a good fit. I actually happen to know multiple people that have done multiple TEDx talks. So if you have enough ideas worth spreading, it is actually possible to hop around and do one every year. Although I'm a little bit more about quality versus quantity, I say identify what your life purpose is, at least in this chapter, and go for it. Okay, and here's a bonus. This is number 6. I do recommend that you attend an event, at least one TEDx. I mean, bonus points if you want to be behind the scenes, like I was for a while. But if you attend, ideally, the chapter that you have your eyes on, because maybe it's convenient or has some sort of meaning to you. And yeah, see how it is, see how the speakers are, see and feel what it's like to be at the event and go ahead and make connections with the speakers. Go ahead and connect with people that are behind the scenes and fellow attendees and really immerse yourself. And not to say that this will necessarily give you a leg up in the competition when you apply and say, oh, I've been to the event, but it does sort of bridge that gap and create a greater sense of community for yourself. And it also lessens uncertainty. And it could actually, who knows, have a positive impact if you do happen to meet someone that somehow plays a role in determining who the speakers are. But you can't really be sure unless, I guess, someone self-identifies as that. So I say just go there and be curious and really embody the TED mission of being someone who really is curious and loves absorbing new information, is open-minded, and yeah, TED, let's go over what that stands for. Technology, education, and design. So that goes back to when I mentioned having more technical talks that fall into either one of those categories, technology, education, or design, as opposed to personal development stories of triumph. But if you can put a spin on it where it fits into one of those categories, you will have a better chance at getting your TED Talk. All right. If you have any additional comments, questions, if you've given a TED Talk, go ahead and link that below and comment that below. And I'd also like to invite you to be a part of my email newsletter where I share typically my video of the week and different tips and different virtual and in-person events. Go over to stephanietoma.com/newsletter. All right. Have a great day, and I'll see you next time.